Good, I wish I was. Okay, I'll call the Planning, Environment, and Development Committee meeting of April 7th to order. We'll do roll call. Everyone is here but Mr. Gadamoller.
He's just joining online.
Okay, is he, he's in? Mr. Gadamoller, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
That's good. Could you state your reason for the public?
Family medical.
Okay, does anybody have a problem with that? Carl makes a motion to accept Mr. Gadamoller into the meeting, seconded by Carolyn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Welcome, Joe. Holler if I forget to call on you for voting or something.
No problem.
I've had better mornings. Okay, a motion to approve the minutes from the March 3rd by Carl, seconded by Paul. Any comments or discussion about the meeting minutes for March 3rd? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public comment.
Go ahead, okay.
Yeah, please come up. You got something to hand out? You want to do that first?
Actually, I can do it, just, I got a packet for you, and this is not something that I wanted to do, I gotta tell you that first off.
Okay.
But first of all, I was here at the February meeting, you might recall that.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I, after that meeting, I was invited to a meeting, and at that meeting, one of the issues that I talked to you about was getting the date and time on a temporary use permit posted on the website, you know, when it turns up when one's issued. Adam indicated that they could do that moving forward, so I'm very thankful for that. But what happened after that, I went to a series of township meetings to let the townships be aware that there was this conditional use permit that was being sought for on this property. And I went to the fire district meeting because I was encouraged to do that. And then one thing led to another, and I decided, okay, I'm being encouraged by all of these entities to look at the UDOs that the county has for temporary use and conditional use permits. Dean, that's something you should really look at. And so I did that. And what I've given you is my analysis of that temporary use permit, and I think some of the shortcomings that it has. It's a little tedious, but I've given you all the documentation as part of the packet, the complete UDOs, the complete application that I pulled down from the county's website, so it's all there. And then the two documents, one refers to the fire district meeting that I went to and some of the issues that came up there, and the other one is really about the temporary use permit application. So what I'm asking you to do is to take a look at it and see if you agree with me that there are some issues that probably need to be looked at. So that's my public comments.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sir, could you name and address for the record, please?
Dean Fritz, 6116 Greenwood Road, Wonder Lake.
Thank you, Scott.
Your next one.
Okay, was there any other public comments? No? Okay, members' comments. Anybody wants to go? Okay, no members' comments this morning. We'll move on to business. Presentations. Routine consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to remove from the routine consent agenda this morning?
7-2. 7-2.
Okay.
I think we should, if we could just have information on both of them, that would be great. That's
Okay. No, that's
Quick
fine.
discussion.
Sure. Go ahead.
Only two.
Okay, could we have a motion for 7-1 then? Carolyn, seconded by Paul?
Yep.
Okay, for discussion 7-1, anybody have anything? I guess we're asking for Storia to lead the way on this.
Sure.
Mind me.
So this is it's All Seasons Orchard up 176. If some of you are familiar with it, it's kind of an agro-tourism farm area. There was a new owner that purchased the property a few years ago. maybe several, I don't know the timeline. So they inherited the property with a violation on it related to some of the changes that the previous owner was doing. And they also wanted to make additional changes as new owners coming into the property. The previous owner had already gone through the process of putting an easement on the property. So this is really an update of that based on how they would like the site to function. So to give you a little bit of background, and really the newer exhibit, if you, that'll probably be the best, but you can see the aerial there, kind of in the middle of the property. There's this kind of long, you can kind of see like this low area where most of the water drains to. There is an existing pond near the right-of-way that actually drains back into that area as well, so most of the property goes there. What they decided to do was put in kind of a new detention basin to hold back some of the water from that area. As I understand it, the owner kind of would go around pumping out areas that would get wet for the agritourism portion. All of it ends up mostly going to the north, so he would kind of pump it into the field and allow that to drain. So this was kind of an additional feature to kind of help control the water from that area becoming too wet, as opposed to stacking more detention on top of it. So inevitably what that ended up happening was, because they were doing that, it changed how they can rearrange their easement area, and that was the ultimate driver, was basically updating an existing easement that they had to the new one that you have in front of you. And that was through, like I said, a new owner. They have a specific vision on how they wanted to operate, and these were the choices that they wanted to make for the property, essentially.
Good question. You don't have any problem. Go ahead, Paul, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask, you got two exhibits here. The one that says proposed detention, is that what the new owner, is this what I'm looking at?
Correct, yes.
And the old, and the other exhibit, is that what's
The old
existing?
one. That was the older one, yeah, and that was what was recorded. Unfortunately, you know, what they did there was they kind of carved out large blocks, and it was a lot of accounting internally through the whole permit to make sure that they were still meeting that 5% impervious, where the new one, they revised it so you can clearly see the boundaries of where the impervious is now, and the calculations are a little bit more straightforward. So the old one is a little bit confusing, but I did want to include it for, you know, reference to everyone, so you can see that it is just basically an update. And yes, where they're showing that kind of proposed detention basin, that's the new basin. And that will be flowing to the same area, but it just, again, it gives them a little bit more control on where they would like the water to be held, and instead of, again, going into that area. But that's, that, you know, that, like I said, new owner, a little bit of a different vision, so.
You're okay with the new
Yes.
proposed?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? We'll vote on 7-1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Joe. Move on to 7-2.
Thanks.
We have a motion for 7.2 by Jim, seconded by Paul. For discussion, Adam.
The fee ordinance. Thank you, Dan.
Great, I love your enthusiasm.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple more over there. It is. So, the fee ordinance. So this came to light during last year's budget cycle. It was always kind of on the horizon for us. I'm handing out the existing schedule and then Model 1, Model 2. There are, you got one, okay.
Yeah.
So, as mentioned, this, last time the fee ordinance was updated in a comprehensive manner was 2015. And we'll get into the details of that. But as we jumped into this fee ordinance and this update, what we were looking at was what drives pardon me. I'm all scrambled up here, guys, sorry. There we go. What drives it? So permits. So we're looking at, first thing we looked at was permit trends. These are items that we've all seen. I don't know why I'm so scrambled here. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Just us.
I know it's just you. There. Take a breath.
That's it.
That's it. All right, so.
We're all friends here. Take a break.
It's been, there's competing interest in my brain, I'll be honest, so. We've had, 2015 was the last time we did it. We had, in that time, we went from escalating fees per square foot. For houses, for commercial, everything, it was, 39 cents for this, 19 cents for electric, 18 cents for plumbing, et cetera. In 2015, it was trying to spark a little bit of ease for people to come in, a little bit of clarity, let people do, better estimations of what permit costs would be, construction costs, all that sort of stuff. So we nixed the escalating fees and we moved to the flat fees. That was a big success. It's easier for us. It's easier for staff. It's easier to have those discussions. It's this, you can start memorizing them or quickly jump to it. And it's 400, it's 500, it's 400. It was made things a lot quicker on our end too. The next piece on it, as we were getting into 2016, 2017, then COVID hit. We didn't touch our fees. We probably could have, because if you go back and we look and we see those numbers all the time in terms of permit numbers, our numbers have continuously gone up. There's, through all of the waves and all of the socioeconomical issues that have gone on in the last 10 years, our permit numbers are consistently going up, which is a good thing. The issue, though, is that our processes have changed completely, and they've really changed over the last year. So this was always on the horizon in terms of this update, because we went from paper to digital. We went from, we've changed some of our other processes along the way, and we'll touch on some of those. So we've also had 3 compensation studies. So not only are we looking at the work in, we have to, how do we gauge how much time that worked? How do we gauge the dollar assignment to that time, dollar per hour? Well, we've had 3 compensation studies. This chart here shows that only 4 of us were here 10 years ago. So there's a completely new staff turnover. So that impacts all of the items that we talked about, from salaries to efficiencies, clarities, and all that sort of stuff. So we were due. As we look at the numbers themselves, they are very consistent. There's certainly no hiding the fact that P&D is supported by the general fund. We quantified it. The average, 5-year average of revenues to expenditure gap is $693,000. It's significant. And as we look at those numbers, 1.5 generally for expenses and $800,000 for revenues, it's something needed to be done. And then that's where it came out in the budget cycle, that hey, P&D probably increase their revenue participation towards the county. So as we look at it, we targeted 10 years in construction and general economics. I always kind of throw the number of 3% per year, cost per living 3% per year when we're doing budgets. That's a 30% increase. That would be a significant jump. So as you're looking at the models in front of you, there's two models. The first one kind of targets our current salaries. That's that 30% jump. So we've installed our current rates for our current staff. Model 2 shows shows the maximum grades for every role in our department. So those, I introduced that concept and we'll kind of explore here in a second. Those are the numbers. These are the percentage trends, if you will. So this is a different perspective of the same exact operation. Expenditure trends over the past 5 years. They're similar. The top is a percentage, the bottom is the actual dollar value for those trends, those differences. Expenditures have risen at 4.59% per year, while revenues have risen 9.19% per year. That's good. However, 4.59% of 1.5 million is still a little bit more than 9.1% of 800,000. So while our revenues are trending a little bit better than our expenditures, that percentage of the bigger number, they're still kind of trailing in general. So this reboot, getting us up 10 years based on just our current salaries and then our hours of operation, which we'll jump into here, was critical. And this chart to me starts to show where we can start gaining ground on our revenues. County board, you guys can tell us if you want us to earn more. And that's what Model 2 shows. Model 1 is a good update and gets us caught back up. Last month when it was discussed, kind of our overarching concepts here, it was discussed that, hey, there's county interest in supporting this. So maybe we don't need to have revenues exceed expenditures, but yeah, we should bring them closer to alignment than separation. So that was our approach. Model 1, Model 2, we mapped out each and every process. So Cindy and her team, Stoyan and his team, Steve and his team, we went through every single step of a permit. Building permit, petition, zoning petition, stormwater permit, and updated them to really figure out how much time, one, do we need, how many different steps are there comparing our paper processes to our digital processes. I say all that because that justifies why it took 6 months. It took a while. We went through everything we could. As we compiled those times, averaged them out, balanced them out, then we compiled hard costs. So there's 2 shining hard costs that we have. SmartGov, our permit software, it's a 6-year contract, the average is about $45,000 a year. Bluebeam, which is our review software, a review platform that allows us to do digital reviews, that's about $18,000 a year. And we're gonna shrink that number a little bit, but it's still gonna exist in some manner or another. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 12, maybe it's 6,000, but it's still going to exist to do that. So we took our average number of permits for the last 5 years, and we boiled that down to $1 per permit. So within each model, there's a $42 software fee that's cooked into it. So it's those 2 softwares, and if there's other software platforms that emerge, if there's other review-dependent hard costs, we'll bake them in. But at present, those are at least a cornerstone of each model. And then we tested it against our trends. So I'll show you a little bit what that looks like here. So the first one that we really explored, and the first segment of our operation that was deficient, if you will, was zoning. The green bars, those are the hours assigned to each different petition type within our current ordinance. They look stark in terms of compared to the blue bars. Some of them are 1 hour to 2 hours, some of them are 2 to 5, some of them are 0 and 30. To Mr. Fritz's point, the big 31, those are the incident action plans associated with temporary use permits. We don't have a fee for them. We don't have, we have a system and a procedure, and there's 4 departments that are involved, and it's a big operation. It took a lot of time, takes a lot of time, takes other, additional staff hours within our office. So that's what we're trying to capture. So there is a difference between where we're at in zoning fees and current zoning fees and hours to the proposed. This is one of the markers. The other one is hard costs associated with the hearings. So we had hours, not only staff time to man and administer those hearings, but we also had the hard costs for the ZBA. We pay the ZBA. We in the last budget cycle, we approved an increase to their per diem. That's about $920 per meeting. It's exactly $920 per meeting. We didn't have that covered at all. So that's really our big difference when we look at the comparisons between the applications on the left, current fees in the middle, Model 1, Model 2, Model 1 in blue, Model 2 in yellow. That's really our big jump. So you'll see, and then the first 5, we lost the per acre fee. Talking with staff, doesn't change much for us when we start adding $50 or $100 per acre. Just do flat fees. It's easier for us, easier for them, we can all understand it. So when we look at conditional use permits going from $2,300 plus an escalating fee to $3,500, $920 of that is ZBA hard costs. And then we've got a couple of hours additional to that for staff. So when we look at that in Model 2, we kept those hours, we kept those hard costs. But the difference is, as opposed to an average amount for all of our planners, now we look at the average maximum grade for everybody in that division. And so that's why it's another $1,000, because that spikes up. If you look at our staff, we don't necessarily need that. We don't need that accounting for, because our average tenure is 5.95 years, it's 6 years. Cindy just hit her 39th mark, 39th year. That throws that average off. So, and congratulations, sorry. Yeah. So that's that, and then you go down the list here, that's how these fees are formulated. So zoning, I exemplify first, because there were deficiencies. There were some, as I said, there were some shortfalls in terms of where those hours were accounted for. But we didn't do that across the board. And this is, I would assign this to each model, but I'll exemplify it here, is we increased conditional uses, additional renewals, map amendments, straight variations. But we kept variations for privacy fences. Those bigger permits, our concept is that those bigger ones can help support the smaller ones. So the hours to do a privacy fence variation, they're about $600. But privacy fence, some privacy fences cost less than $600. So there's some of that practicality we tried to assign within this across the board. So yeah.
Let's say on example 2. I want to ask a question about the solar farm permits.
Yep.
Between that and then stormwater.
Okay.
I don't see a permit on the stormwater side for solar farms, is that?
They would be based on the development. What do they typically run into, Stoyan?
A major development.
A major development. So we can jump ahead to, it's the next slide. So in stormwater, so this structure, this is the existing. Here's our comparison. So this would be Model 1, Model 2, and then major development would be the third to last column, major development. So they're $1,200, $1,400 respectively. And these are based on, again, these are same assignment in terms of hours in, salaries for those staff. Inspections are gonna be baked in there too. So stormwater, $1,400 for the base, $550, $700, $800 for wetland. Inspections are $600. I don't wanna say it's a la carte, but depending on the site conditions and what's presented and what is necessary from our staff, they'll add a flood hazard review or wetland review.
Is there a limit by law how much we can charge?
There is on the permit side, and
Are we at the maximum under this?
on the zoning and on the building, we are. So it's $5,000 per megawatt applied for, with a cap of $75,000 for the zoning and $125,000. We'll verify that, but there's a cap. It's black and white cap, and they've changed it actually a little bit. It used to be $5,000 and $7,500 for the building permit. There's more technical staff. I don't know what the rationale was, and now they made them both even, and then the cap was there.
Is there a limit on the stormwater permit for them?
I don't recall seeing one, and
Should we
that's
separate that out? Stormwater from the major development?
certainly can. I mean, it's for us,
I
it's as
think
simple
we
as
should
adding a
be-
line. I think we would get legal's opinion on it.
I think we should be charging more for that, for solar farm.
I have one question along with Jim. How do we compare to our fees related to surrounding counties like Lake County and solar, King County and solar? Are we,
So we're competitive. We're typically a little under. We have been. I sincerely, I didn't run that model. for this. I didn't do the cross comparisons because it wasn't our operating concept. It was bringing us up to speed.
Sure.
I can certainly get you those numbers and try to compare, apples to apples on it.
Specifically the solars and the battery,
Okay.
just those two items.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
costs on those.
Sure.
And the battery's separate,
Correct.
they are separate.
They would be feed the same way in terms of the building permit. State law, the way I read it, the state law assigns one building permit fee for any of those energy generating facilities.
So they're into one.
Yeah, wind,
Wind,
solar,
solar,
gas. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But parsing out stormwater, I don't recall seeing anything that would constitute, it says construction permit or building permit, I think, so. We'll see what they interpret.
I would like to see a split stormwater, solar off and battery off of stormwater, off the major and make it a separate higher fee.
I think that, for me, the first step would be look into what we can do. If we can do that, we'll confer
Right.
with the state's attorney's office on what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a list of inquiries. I'll add that to the inquiry list in terms of items to.
Do you want me to email your email?
No, I got it, yeah. Thank you.
Adam?
Yeah.
Real quick, on your original 5A through C, you got fees for A, $300, for B, $575. It's residential alterations. And when I
Yes.
go jumping through the models, you nearly go up 300%.
In residential alterations, so moving to building. Residential alterations, commercial alterations, hands down, far and away, are our biggest time sink.
So your biggest one?
Time sink. More hours are assigned to those. As an architect, they're difficult to draw. Where is the extent of the scope? How much do we demonstrate? With the county, we don't drive people to go to architects or drafters. We don't require it. But we end up with alterations. We end up getting close as any of these to that conversation of saying, hey, listen, maybe you're going to end up getting an electrician or a plumber. It may be time to hire a consultant to do the drawings because we can't complete our review, and it's unfortunate. But that was one of the big things I was going to highlight here is of all those small permits, the ones that are going to subsidize or support others, alterations are one that staff, our recommendation or our request is that we maybe increase it if we're looking to cover some of these hours and some of the expenses. Do we want to drop it down a little bit? We could, but I would defend it a hair. Publicly.
Yeah, I guess I would just
And back
question if being that high in a small alteration, would they even come to you for it, And then, so you're
Very-
deterring
Yeah.
potential.
If you're thinking it, then maybe that's our answer. If you have to ask me if it's right, then probably it's wrong, right? Maybe we draw that down. I'm looking at the numbers there. Maybe we can draw that down. I would respect.
I'd rather them get an inspection than a permit than,
Yeah.
go without,
Sure.
just because of the value of the permit cost.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
So,
I think that's reasonable.
But if that's a real time sink, then,
yeah, and I agree, and
and you're saying that a lot of the work you're actually doing is more looking at the design and how that's impacting it, because they're not bringing in somebody who's doing that for them. I mean, then, we've got everybody else, if in what we're saying is it's through the property tax, then other people are paying for that process to happen, rather than putting more of that on the person who's actually having it done.
I agree with you on that. I agree, I was just seeing how,
So it is a balance, because you want people to come in for the permits, but we also need to remember, is everyone else responsible for paying for that then?
Also, when they don't get the permit, they get caught, that double fee, yeah.
I did see that on page 3, it was a double fee, yeah. Yeah, and I guess when you went online to do your permit, it kind of saved you guys some time, because you're doing a lot of hand holding, right? People come in.
It shifts where the time is spent. Previously, we would meet with people at the counter. We would talk to them 40 minutes and, however long it needed to take, talk about this, and then, there's always a little bit of that extra conversation to, all right, yeah, we'll see you. Now it's a lot of correspondence that goes back and forth via email. It's a little less personable, but it's the folks, once they're engaged, it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a couple emails back and forth, trying to make sure they've got all their pieces in a row. And until our permit text will say, hey, you're good to go, now we've got it. Or, it's a little bit of pressure of, we've got 4 of those, but we're not getting that final response from them, and it sits there. So now there's that less personable contact actually works against us. And so it shifts that time there. That was actually one of the things that we added when we started going through our processes was, that permit intake, the completeness review, that went from, 5, 10, 15 minutes to 10, 20, 30 minutes per application, in average numbers. We don't want to assign our fees based on the outliers, but it's hard to deny that they exist when we're interviewing our staff and they're like, this takes time. So that was one thing that we installed within this process that we're trying to assign some time. To finish the thought on the alterations, I'm looking at them right now, at least in the rounded fees in Model 1, which I'm focusing on Model 1, that Model 1 would be my starting picture. Model 2 is kind of an example to show you where it could go, but Model 1 paired with this next concept, paired with let's revisit this every 2 years to see where not only staff is at in terms of assignments of grades and hours, but also, hey, are we getting more alteration violations? But looking at that, maybe we drop it down to going to tier 1 or the top tier, 650, maybe that goes to 500, and the 900 goes to 750, and the 1300 goes to 1,000. Maybe we click it down a little bit and monitor. Or if you want to get that into 3 digits.
Larry?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
My concern is that you're going to chase people out of the process. If you raise it this much at one time, there's no doubt in my mind that guys are going to do the 250 square foot or the 250 to 600 square foot renovations and hope they don't get caught. And, considering I don't really want us chasing people down for a few $100s. I think we're better off providing that service. I understand if you're building a brand new house and you're doing things, but you're gonna if you raise this from $575 to $900, you're never gonna see a 601 square foot reserve thing. They're just they'll stop in, they'll find out the price, and they'll just go do it. And I don't like us being. I think we're better off as a group subsidizing some of the low end and making certain we get involved in the process.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's sort of what was Paul's opinion too on it for a portion of it. It's a hard balance to find, I guess, Adam. What are we gonna do with this today? I mean, the discussion's good, and we're talking about different things that maybe we would like or dislike.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna approve this as it's written. So just keep for discussion and table it, and you'll come back with some new numbers.
Yeah, I can tighten up those numbers. Yeah, it's.
And I'm not drawing this to a conclusion right here, I just was.
Yeah, I hear you.
It sounds to me like we're getting some different ideas that this isn't gonna be a yes or no vote kind of thing today.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
I have one question on the temporary use fees.
What page?
They have 0 on them, right? We don't charge them, is that what I saw up in one chart? You got like
For the temporary use incident action plans. So those would be the rodeos and the concerts. Those are events that are over 500 people. They trigger an incident action plan, which would be, we help administer it, but it really goes through EMA, the sheriff's office for security vet, the fire district, and then the roadway districts are typically involved as well.
That has a fee?
There's no fee assigned to those right now. There's no fee now. Those, we put those in there. It's a raw number. I'm trying to find it here.
1,200.
Yes, yeah, there.
I mean,
Right in
I'm
the
not
middle.
trying to fee someone who's having a party, or they're having a sale of antiques or whatever. There's one out there, I'm ringing up this antiques, I see that all the time. I don't necessarily want a fee for those. I just wonder if we could look at some of these things like this rodeo that's been a high expense problem for you. That you could single some of those events out, I don't know,
The incident plan has a
just for discussion.
participation number though, 500, is that what it is?
Yeah, and those,
So-
those typically are assigned to those rodeos and the concerts only. The temporary uses, we do have proposed those going up, those are $100 right now. The base fee would be $250 under Model 1, $400 on the other two, but $250, and then for those that have repeat events, they would come back through and they could get it for $100. Right now, it's $100 flat. And then the renewals frankly have not been
Where is that line?
utilized.
I can't
Here,
find
I
it.
got you.
Oh, which
The
line
line
is it?
The lines are these three.
Okay,
So these are the proposals there.
Yeah.
so temporary use permit and this applies to what size? Is that a size?
Temporary use permits would be like the barn sales
Yeah,
or
right.
antiques,
Okay.
several different types of uses. The incident action plan, so these are the basic temporary uses.
Right.
So for all those sales or anything. The renewals would be one when they come in to reapply for one within that calendar year. And then the incident action plans, these are items that when we amended our ordinance 2 years ago to go from 2,500 person events, attendees, down to 500, that incident action plan, it's an IAP is the way you probably hear it more often. Those fees, there was never a fee for one of those.
We went from 500 to 250, or did we go the other way around?
We went from 2,500
Oh, 2,500.
down to 500.
Right.
Yeah, the
Okay.
2,500, to give you the history, the 2,500 was based on an event up in Richmond for the Tough Mudder. And they needed an incident action plan. They had people all over a 50-acre parcel running and a couple of them drinking, all that sort of stuff. That one was successful. But now those events, we haven't seen one of those in a while, and those events have evolved into these rodeos or the concerts that have 7, 8, 1,200, 1,500 people that have probably a more concentrated site. Probably more of a need for an incident action plan there than there even was for a Tough Mudder.
How many temporary use do we issue a year countywide?
We have toggling over. It's less than 50. I want to say it's the average. I don't see it on here. The average is, I want to say it's in the 40s. The average number of temporary uses.
That'd be a lot more.
All right.
But
That's right. Yeah, Dean knows. That's right.
temporary uses that are like the barn sales or whatever versus the incident action plan, I mean, how do you break those out?
Those are broken out now. So
Yeah, but when we talk about temporary uses, we're not talking about all of them, we're talking
No.
about the ones that don't
correct.
trigger an IEP.
Yep. So it's events that are held for commercial purposes. The alternative to them holding this event would be to hold at their property, would be to hold that event at the Concord, or to hold it at the fairgrounds, or to hold it at a place that's a permitted commercial structure, something along those lines. So we give them the opportunity to have three of these events per year at their property, as long as they meet certain standards. And if they exceed, if they're the type of event that would exceed that 500 mark. So weddings may fall under that, but we want to ensure that they're not. You know, I mean, that they're not the same as a rodeo. They're not the same as a concert. They're a much different event, you know, as a graduation party would be or something.
So when I look down this list of fees, I see some that I say, boy, that's really high, and other ones I think that are really low, like the mining permit, you know, $1,000 across the board for mining and all that, which causes a lot of grief in hearings and different things. Is that low, the earth extraction?
The operations permit is, I don't wanna say it's pretty straightforward. Our hard numbers on that are sub 1,000. They're basically ensuring that, one, their operation is in alignment with what was already approved. And then second to that, you know, we have health department out there and we're looking at the monitoring wells and we're making sure that, you know, the settling ponds are, you know, there's no construction debris, that it's in good shape. So, and then we issue an operations permit. Could we ratchet it up? Yeah, we could. But at present, our operations are sub 1,000.
But you're talking ones that are up and running.
Yeah.
And I think
Yes.
Jim's thinking about new applications, so where's that come in?
Those would fall under the conditional use permits at 3,500. So currently, they're
Okay.
23 plus the acreage, they would be at the 3,500. And then the renewals would be, if there was a conditional use renewal, that's the third line. And those would be $2,200. Right now, they're $1,200 plus the acreage. So that would be this line to compare. So those are the new
That
ones.
answers my question.
Yeah, okay. And then, as long as you're on that acreage thing, a few years ago, we had a golf course
Yeah.
that was just completely out of whack because of the acreage.
Yeah.
How do we fit something like that into this schedule?
This flat fee would absorb it. So the models 1 and model 2, we would do away from the acreage fees.
Okay.
Which is our current model, and we would assign the flat fee. So there's a little bit of padding in there, you know, 2 hours of padding.
Were you here when they did the golf course thing?
No, I'm aware of it though, yeah.
Okay, and did we just waive the acreage fee then on that one? I know we lowered it considerably, because it was gonna be like 20 grand.
Really? Okay. I don't recall. Kim? No? All right.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
it was Oak Grove Golf Course by Alden,
Yeah.
2014, 15, right in there maybe?
Okay. We'll have to look at that. I don't know.
Okay, but if
They're probably up.
well, if you're going to a straight fee on one of these models, I guess it doesn't matter, but that was just a weird thing that came up
Yeah.
that nobody expected. They had a 20-year deal on it, and then when it came up, it was gonna be like $20,000.
Gotcha. Yeah, our staff, when we were looking at, and like I said, zoning, we really looked at all of our hours, because it's been a long time. And some of our operations just simply weren't covered within our current fee ordinance. So assigning those hours was critical. And one of the first waves in our reviews, the first things that our staff gave feedback on was we can do away with the acreage fees to align with, you know, the success we've had with stormwater and building, with being able to discuss with homeowners, business owners, that this is what it's gonna cost. And no, you don't have to try to go get a survey to cut out your farm, cut out this little piece so that you can do, if you have a 100-acre farm, you already have that legal description, now you gotta go get a survey to assign a zoning lot within your property line. So it's a little bit of a give and take. That money may be spent elsewhere when they do the acreage fees too.
Okay. Paul, did you have something else?
Just one last, what gets you in the budget?
Pardon me?
What gets you back in the budget, you know, as
Yeah.
far as, is it Model 1, Model 2, is it
So-
in between?
Model 1 represents 31.4%. So it brings us up to where we're at in terms of our operational costs. We're still gonna be trailing. But if we look at Model 2, it's more in the 65% catch-up range. But to some of the comments that we've discussed, those are big jumps. Those are big jumps to make. That's why I still would put my chips towards Model 1 on this and my recommendation towards Model 1. There are some instances where Model 1 is even a big jump because of those hard costs. But going through last year's budget cycle, that was clear that we should cover some of these costs. So will it bring us back up to, you know, even, going back to this chart? It won't bring us back up to even, but our projections in terms of, let me get the actual number. The projection that I could give, and while I'm tap dancing, I will say that we don't know who's coming in the door. We don't know who's building the next big development house, et cetera. Our projections would get us to about 1.15 to $1.2 million in revenue. with the new Model 1. So that would jump, when I say $800,000 of average revenue, you can see it goes up. You can see it goes from 744 to 984 in terms of last year's revenue. So when we start comparing those jumps, we would move up. We're at about $1 million in projections this year, a little over. We would be at about that almost $1.2 million. If
225,000.
Yeah. So if we wanted to ratchet it up a little bit more, that's where I guess I would come back with, maybe we look at it every 2 years. When we looked at it operationally, if we do it every year, then we operate with an ordinance for 10 months and then it takes 2 months to update it. So it may not be as practical. But every 2 years, we can see where our personnel grades have changed and where maybe our hour assignments were maybe a little off, or maybe where we're getting some violations. And we can grade that and apply that into the new model.
What is your proposed effective date of this taking place? So if it passed 2 months from now, would it be June or would it be the end of the year? When would it start?
We would be able to employ it, the first of the next month. So we would try to hit the first of whatever month, just so we could have clean tracking on it. But yeah, if let's say we go forward now, we do a 30-day review and then adopt it in May, it would be a June 1 effective date.
It's a lot.
There's a lot here.
There's a lot there,
Well,
right?
But I rely on Adam and his team. I mean, we sort of have to, on what he's put together here. Is there if somebody puts a package together, and I guess I used the golf course before, it was a little out of whack. I mean, they would have, or you could even bring it to us and say, hey, maybe we need to waive this fee, or we need to change it because it's a very unusual circumstance. We would have that option, right?
We certainly can. We modified, so going to page 3, our fee schedule notes of the existing schedule. We added but it got cut off. We added a 10th note. We added a 10th note that assigns refunds. So not that it makes like a difference, doesn't answer your question, so I'll skip over what that is. But we can add certain conditions. Back in 2023, we had several fee waiver requests come into the committee, if you recall. And we talked about, hey, how can we kind of mitigate some of these? Because either they're approved or, man, we got to publicly slam them, right? So why don't we add some administrative authority to waive them? So if they're based on miscalculations or governmental fee, whatever it might be, misinformation is what the other one was. So
Doesn't fit in the package. Doesn't hit that pigeonhole. You have some administration.
Yeah.
Freedom here.
That one would be something where if there's something that's out of whack, that we would still have the ability to bring it forward to PED for waiver. I think we would be comfortable with that, as opposed to having administrative authority to say, hey, we recognize these are really out of whack. Because there are other developers, there are other builders that come in and just pay it. So it would be something that, we would represent that, hey, while this person is requesting this waiver, we have had 4 other people pay this fee, just so you're not walking into it. We would try to find that language.
And I'm just curious, going back to what Joe and Paul were talking about with, the smaller build outs of, and those, fees. If we offset that with looking at stormwater in a different capacity, looking at solar battery in a different capacity, increasing those comparatively to like current, projection.
Sure.
Then it could offset those other ones where, they indicated that, we would want them to have some oversight. So
Yeah.
I would like those numbers back.
Okay.
And maybe we can have further, discussion.
Okay. Yeah, and if you look at, I pulled up the building fees, the first 4 are ones that we employed that model. So it did go up, but a deck fee of $150 for a deck under $150 went up to $200. if that's not worth it, you know what I mean? If
Right.
that's not worth it, then I'll put two models together, one with that and one with the flat, and we can kind of go through those. No problem with that. I think that's good direction. Is that all right?
Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right.
So we, just real quickly, so where are we going to, because I do think that I would go higher with the incident action plan in terms of the going with Model 2, not Model 1.
Okay.
I think it's a very extensive process. We have a small team as it is that will help offset their costs. So I'd like to see that in there. And there might be other places. I mean, I understand what you're saying about the Model 1 and not wanting to be a huge jump, but I also don't want to be always catching up.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
We were 10 years behind on our wetland mitigation, funds, and that was a lot of money,
Yeah.
And so I don't want to be constantly trying to catch up. And this is good, so I appreciate it. This was a
Yeah.
ton of work, so thank you.
What-
But maybe
what I-
there's things, maybe if we do more focus on the Model 1, but then knowing that there are certain areas where we can pull in that Model 2 rate that makes more sense, given what you're doing.
Okay.
So,
Alright.
so where do we go from here then?
Good question.
Next month, we'll see that.
Well, this was discussion, right?
No,
This was
yeah,
put
it's
up,
on the
I put it together as an ordinance, but if we push it,
So we need a
We'll do what we
motion to
need.
table it for a month?
Postpone.
Well, if you're comfortable with the discussion point, we don't want, have we gone through it enough where everybody's comfortable with what the changes might or could be? I mean, we just brought a new incident, a new conversation about the incident action plan going with Model 2, and Carolyn's proposal was to raise it that much. Mine thought would be that's too much. Somewhere in between might work for me, but
What a model.
Model 2 is $2,500. That's a pretty good chunk of money to have.
yeah.
Some of those events that are, I mean, think about what the problems we have with them and how
Yeah.
much, has to go into making sure that they're, I don't know, following everything. I think that was 2,500, what was the,
Half of
Model
it.
1, half of that?
Yeah.
Model 1 was 12, yeah, 1,200. I think Joe's got a question.
So let's do an example for that. One of the rodeos.
Yeah,
Several months back, we had problems that they were having events without the permit
mhm,
in that. So essentially, if it were $2,500 on Model 2, you would take them to court basically, and for double the fee. It'd be a double fee. They'd get on the hook for $5,000 at that point.
so with
If they
that
have that
one,
event, we should be suing.
zoning, we would end up in court, but zoning violations are a little bit different because they're use. It happened today, it didn't happen. It's not ongoing, so it's dissimilar to a building permit where the violation still exists today and we needed a permit to fix it. With zoning violations, they needed a permit and we sent them to court one way or the other because as long as we have proof. And then they go to court, their big penalty would be a moratorium. At present, is there more that we can do? That's what we're exploring with a couple of other, not in the fee ordinance, but with the UDO and whether or not we can be more punitive. So it's a difficult one to rein down because the big key on that is the subtle word of proof. And sometimes the proof, being able to prove it and take it forward into court. We do have several properties that we are aware of. We've met last Monday. Scott put together a meeting to kind of go through our processes and procedures with the Sheriff's Office, State's Attorney's Office, Administration, and P&D to how are we going to look this year? And we're confident that we've got a grip of what properties are going to be doing these events. We've had communications with the event holders, some of them. Some of them have been elusive. They don't put their advertisements on social media or online or anything like that, and they'll communicate via WhatsApp or some other app that we can't obtain. And those are those are more difficult to prove. But there's still a way around it. But it may not be through the zoning the UDO and the fee ordinance, it may be through the noise ordinance and civil.
Well,
Yeah, right, yeah.
Topic.
Yeah, I don't wanna steal your thunder, Scott, I'm sorry.
just the same as what Paul and Joe brought up though, about if we raise it so high, do they get the permit? I mean, if I see $2,500 here and I know there's gonna be 500 or 600 people attending, I'm gonna sell 499 tickets
Well, here's the problem
and
though.
prove to them that there's not 500 people there.
But our penalty to them is so little, they don't care. They just do it anyway because they just absorb the cost. So if they're found in violation, and we have this thing where you double the permit fee if you violated it, right? Well, maybe you have a second one. If your permit fee was and triggered an IAP, we're gonna do more than the double penalty if you're caught. And then maybe they're willing to pay that fee up front because they don't want a triple fee or something. I think that these events are able to get away with it because they bring enough money that it's a slap on the wrist. Yeah, you get to the moratorium, but how many events have you had by the time you get to a moratorium? And how long? Like if it's just for the year, well then that's fine because they'll just wait till next year, right? Is it a
They will wait.
5-year moratorium?
Right now the UDO has it as a 1-year moratorium, and they will. I mean, one that we had last year in August has already come back in and talked about when can we do our next one, and that's their right, to have it on August 18th, but they can't have it on the 17th. The double fee may be difficult to assign. I will say that just from the same standpoint of the way the UDO works and those permits work. Right now, they're $100, so something I would say needs to change, especially on those larger permits. But the incident action plans, I respect what you're saying, is we don't want to drive them away. We're trying to account for some of that cost. So does it factor down, and do we test it? We want to make sure they're employed as opposed to not employed, is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
I feel like we're marinating about this one topic, which is next. So I wonder if we could, with some of the feedback to you about these couple areas, can we bring it back for discussion next month? And then look at that and compare and.
Well, yeah, that's probably what's gonna end up happening here, but if we don't get all this topics discussed here, Adam's not gonna know what to bring us. If he brings it back next month, then all of a sudden we find something in a different spot. Now he's bringing it back another month. So we can hash this out a little. So
It would be helpful.
The best satisfaction we can, and maybe we're not gonna hit every point this month, because maybe when I take this home and reread it, I'm gonna say, hey, that's just not right, no matter, even if we discussed it here, I wasn't thinking about it as something a little different or whatever.
So can I clarify?
Yeah.
Because it's part of the consent agenda, if we approve it, does that mean it's moving forward as it is, or just that we can continue to discuss it?
Well, we can always continue to discuss it, and it's an ordinance, so we'll be moving it forward for review. Give a better answer than I'm coming up with, Adam.
Well, I think we could say that we could move it forward as an ordinance with these specific changes, with the understanding that we've agreed on these changes. You're gonna pull that together and it moves forward to the full board with those changes. That's what we're approving. But that gets very detailed about what we want that to look like. Now, we can't be making general statements about that and know what it's gonna end up.
That's where I'm a little foggy.
Right, so we have to decide.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is maybe we need to push it back to next month, or push it to next month.
Because I'd like an answer on the solar.
Yeah,
batteries and
we
all.
have,
And there are some tangible things that I want to make sure go forward before we put it on 30-day review. More discussion with the committee, and is what I'm hearing.
I prefer that.
Yeah, and so if what the actual action might be, I'll look to Scott and Alicia, but if that's tabling it or
I think we just move the discussion to next.
it doesn't
month.
leave committee is what I'm hearing.
I move that we pull this off of the consent agenda and push it to the next meeting, PED meeting for, I would say come back with a proposal for the ordinance. And then we can decide whether or not we want to, don't do discussion only, because we want to be able to move it forward if it's where we want it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Did
so
Joe
bring
want
this
to?
back next month. Is
Okay,
that,
so that's your motion?
that's my motion.
Table it till next month? Got a second for that? Okay. Second.
Dina.
Dina.
We'll give it-
Dina was first.
Dina.
I still
They're
have-
good.
Joe.
Joe.
Okay, Joe, please go ahead.
When you bring it back, if you want to show a comparison, but don't give us two models. Give us the model,
Yep.
I would say take number one, make that be the ordinance, show the difference on number two, but don't put it as part of the thing. Don't give us an or when we're doing this. Give us an ordinance that we could forward.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, and I think the committee has, just from the comments I'm hearing, is Model 1, and your suggestion was Model 1 with some tweaks.
Yeah, with some tweaks.
I don't think Model 2 is gonna go anywhere.
I agree. I think Model 2, it's nice to know this is what these would be, but I don't want it to be part of the ordinance. I think it's a mistake to give the board two choices. We'll never get it through.
Okay.
I agree, Joe. Thank you.
You guys
Go ahead,
all-
Paul.
Yeah, so this whole thing is about trying to get you back in budget in your group, right?
It catches us up, yeah, and advances us a little bit, yeah, yeah.
Can you show us what you look like in 5 years from now, you know? Like you say, we might have to look at it 2
Yeah.
years from now or whatever, but if we're gonna raise fees this year, is it just same thing every year, 3%? You know, if your raises are going up 3%, how do you try and catch up? Can you
Yeah.
show that?
Yes, and I'll say it before I put those numbers out there, because I've got projections going into 2029, but there's too many variables to be locked in, that we don't know what's coming through the door, and also the different magnitude of permits. So if we get, every year say this is the year for pools, this is the year for accessory structures or decks, so they go, it's odd to me that this chart is so consistent. This revenue chart, we know the expenditures are gonna be about the same. We know what, those are pretty predictable. But it's kind of remarkable how consistent our revenues have been, given the disparity in permit types that have come through the door. But yes, all that's to say yes. I'll give you something.
Thank you.
Can you send that slide deck?
Yeah,
to us?
yeah, for sure. There are a couple things I'm gonna clean up, so I won't send it, I won't just
Yeah, no,
forward
that's
the
fine.
PDF. I saw a couple things that got clipped.
Okay. Well, if the committee's comfortable doing that, then we'll vote on tabling this until next month. All those in favor say aye.
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 My comment on is, it's in front of us, we've got it. Please get any questions, suggestions, or whatever to add them ahead of time, so he can have it in his notes, review it first, so we have a little better conversation, or more detailed conversation maybe next month, so we can make a decision on moving this forward, right?
Yeah, and if you're here and you wanna go through it for 10, 15, 3 hours, whatever you wanna do, I'm here. That'd be good information for us, so.
Get it to him ahead of time. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for entertaining those first 45 seconds.
So, okay. That's the plan then. Move on to old business. And let's see. Dina, you emailed me about something that I suggested you bring up in the old business, or are we gonna cover it somewhere in here? I forget.
I think it might be under special events, animal welfare standards.
Okay. Yeah, that was part of it. I was thinking there was something else, but I could be wrong.
Oh, and then Senate Bill 25, but it looks like it's in this,
Wherever you want. Yeah.
9.1.
Okay. Well, we got 9.1 coming forward to discuss, so if you have any questions about that or how that bill fits in,
Correct.
just shoot it out there for us.
Okay.
Okay, proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance. Red line.
All right.
Okay, we're changing system to facility.
So,
Go ahead. Thank you.
yeah, it's us again. Kim Charlo,
Thank you.
planner, and so Kim not only has been with us, if you saw on the chart, for 26 years, but she is our sole trusted solar pro in the office. So Kim administers and manages and all the work you see in terms of the solar conditional uses goes through Kim and our team with zoning. So it was only natural that she led our initiative for the amendments to comply with the new state act, public act. And then we also put in a couple of other items that within the UDO that were, you know, kind of clear and obvious. So, and I'll say that there's maybe 4 or 5 of them that are in there that are maybe a little bit more, but that we know needed to happen. We've got maybe 7 pages of amendments, suggestions, notes that our division kind of works through, and they just we haven't brought them forward yet. We haven't had the opportunity with some of the other amendments that we've had to put together, and this is one of them that we've been working on for quite a while. We know this needs to go. You know it needs to go in terms of the adoption or the enactment is in June, and every county in the state has to have their ordinances amended within 120 days of that enactment. We have other priorities within the UDO that we also want to bring forward to you, so we put this up front. We're ahead, and we're doing our homework early. Before June, so it would be in effect in June, in July, so that we don't have to worry about that, and we can start working on the next wave of amendments to bring forward that would be more just like the fee ordinance. We're really interested in what your perspectives are as a board for those. These we are also interested in, but sometimes there's just no choice with some of the things that we're going to bring forward here. So
just before we get started too far, is the state's attorney looked at this to make sure we're complying with the?
So they are actively looking at it. Yeah, we've sent them a draft. Where are we at? A couple weeks ago, and they have it in their queue, but they couldn't commit to today's sign off for today's meeting. But we've worked with some of the other jurisdictions that have similar text amendments that are coming forward. We've worked with developers and the state's attorneys, without verbally, not in writing, to make sure that we're in good, firm ground on these, to make sure that they do comply.
What would be in this thing that you sent us that would be for our discussion today that is not part of the state statute that we have to follow?
Sure.
Is that?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
Not that that's the only thing, but there is some stuff in there. Otherwise, we're not just looking at this as what you changed for state statute.
Correct.
There's other things in here that we need to.
We kind of use that as our starting point and our main drive here, but then we took the opportunity to fix some other things that were either quick fixes, clerical type issues. There were some things that once the ordinance was codified, things got dropped or shifted around. So a lot of that is just fixing those types of things.
Okay.
I don't know if you wanted me to hit on specific ones that are, beyond just typo type, things, if you wanted to go through any of that. The majority is relating to energy storage systems, new definitions and standards, but.
On-site services business might be one to start
Okay.
with.
Yeah, so I know that you all have seen that we've had kind of an uptick in off-site services businesses, and many residents have been looking to do that in agricultural areas. And I believe, I don't know if it was the zoning board that was kind of backing that up, that felt that they should be allowed with a conditional use permit in the A1 district. So that is in addition to the use table to include off-site services business as a conditional use in the A1 district, but then to remove it as a conditional use in the B1 and B2 because those are more neighborhood business type uses. They don't see that intensity really in those types of smaller business lots. So that's what's being proposed there.
Heavy retail sales was another similar.
That was really just some leftover language. It was several amendments ago, they changed it from heavy retail sales and service to drop the service part of it, but it was still hanging out in some of our definitions and on our use table, so that's really just to clean that up and make sure that that language is not still in there.
What am I, item number was that one?
It's on page.
Oh, the page?
7. Yeah, you're good. Page 7. under the zoning district uses chart. So the first chart you'll see is energy storage systems allowed by conditional use in A1, A2. The next chart removes the and services in red under heavy retail sales and services removed.
Well, services would be,
I need to check on that conditional use under A1 for heavy retail sales, because I don't think that is right. I think that got put on the wrong place. I'm gonna double check that.
Okay.
I think it was only supposed to be under offsite services. I don't know why that's there.
You're saying that
The name changed.
That mean-
Yeah, the name is
That's
different.
definitely changing, but I don't think
the
that.
C will be gone?
Are you saying that C is gonna
I think
go?
that's.
I don't think that C is supposed to be there next to heavy retail sales, so I'm gonna double check that. I don't believe that should be in the A1 district.
No.
It's a pretty heavy
Yeah,
intense
that's-
use, yeah.
And then the bottom chart would be the offsite services businesses. There's, maybe the next thing while you're looking at that. The next one would be an expansion of, we did an overlay district in Bayview Beach for those docks and that channel. There was an application that came through that challenged our whole world. There was a subdivision, an extension, homestead addition to Bayview Beach on the Fox River subdivision. It's a small addition to that subdivision that was added to that overlay district because they are part of that subdivision, where previously it wasn't identified as such, and so they came through. It wasn't identified on our maps, it wasn't identified in the plats, but someone came through with a valid challenge, and we said, yeah, we recognize that to be. So codifying that to be incorporated. That's on the top of page 10.
Oh, got it.
And several pages of the energy storage systems. I think in the storage yard, we changed one of those definitions that we're talking about in item QQ, page 12. It talks about a solid fence. That's about the only place that solid shows up in our ordinances, so we changed that to privacy, which would.
It's actually in there many times.
It is?
We actually went and changed it on any page it appears because we don't really reference solid, and privacy would be anything that's less than 50% open. So for consistency, we're just changing all solid fencing
Can't get it big
to
enough on
privacy.
the screen.
Even better.
Okay. And you're saying at this point, the state's attorneys has yet to weigh in, so in terms of.
Correct.
Okay. See what they say.
You know, on the setbacks from the property lines, or from the one was 50 feet, and the other one was 150 feet from the residence. Is that the residential property line, it's 150 feet?
No, from
back?
the residential structure.
From the structure.
Yeah.
So, and Carolyn, you brought up State's Attorney's Office, and so one of the process that these will go under for an amendment is it goes to the committee. The committee, if you're in favor in principle, hey, this is what we want, subject matter wise, it would then go to the ZBA for review and for a hearing, and then it would come back to PED for that formal adoption. So it's a long process to go through. So yeah, it's the first blush at this point for the committee.
So we're basically looking end of summer, fall before.
Yeah, so we still won't hit that June 1 mark, because then it goes 30-day review as well.
Yeah, I was
So
thinking
there's
probably July.
July would
most
be
likely.
its earliest, because in anticipation of committee support on this one, we're looking at a April 29th hearing date. So we've got, our numbers are up in terms of hearing dates. Those hearing dates are scheduled out, so we try to get our assignment, at least for this one, for the text amendment. So So that would go to ZBA on the 29th of April. Yeah.
Under this proposed, the law taking effect, not proposed, I saw in there somewhere about the road agreements that they have to get with the jurisdiction, like the townships or the county. I should know this, but on the county side, do we have any negotiated agreements on the solar farm access? Because I know like one of the townships that I'm aware of, their agreement with the one solar farm was like a $25 fee up front for the road access, and then they had a particular route they had to follow. And then when they didn't follow that route, they had for every truck, they had a fee, and they paid like $18,000 in fines for taking the wrong routes, because you're tearing up the roads.
Yeah, I know that different jurisdictions have different road use agreement terms. Some of them have been pretty harsh. McDOT, as far as I know, they've only required like specific amount of half right-of-way dedication. But I haven't seen any actual road use agreements from McDOT. It's mostly the townships, I believe.
So what I'm wondering is if there's any other county that has done this, a road agreement with these, where they're charging a fee to them for access.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that, but I know there is language in the new law about, having reasonable fees, because some of them have tried to kind of go above what they probably should be. I don't know what reasonable ends up meaning in that
Well, that's
case,
the
but
problem.
it's, yeah.
Nothing is, you're gonna get sued because it's off of what they say, but they don't even say how many, the length of years or anything on some of these things.
Right.
So we have to kind of determine, I still think we have to fund revenue on some of these projects. We have to find some revenue on it. I don't know where
We'll
we
get
start with
McDOT
that.
involved on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Being that the townships are able to do this, we're maintaining that also. If we can fee it by law, we should fee it on those particular projects. Because they're shutting down the roads for access and everything. They're literally shutting down the roads on some of these roads when they're stocking the projects, all the equipment and everything. Then there should be, on the county side, there should be a fee for that.
Yeah, I'm unsure what the county's ordinance has in terms of flexibility on that or applicability.
That's a question we should ask our state's attorney if we can do that as a county.
Okay. We'll incorporate that with them.
Okay, anyone else have anything on this? So we'll see this again in June, is that what you're thinking?
So do we need a vote for them to okay it for public hearing, or is it just?
Yeah, so you would vote, or give us, it would be a voice vote, it doesn't have the actual vote. It would be, because you'll be the applicant, PED will be the applicant for the text amendments. And so if you're good, we'll take that vote going forward. We talked about this most of last week in terms of where this lands on the ordinance, on the agenda, and the last couple that we did were on discussion and direction. So I guess we'll follow that model going forward, and maybe we have that question into SAO too.
Carl, what?
Jim, go ahead.
I just wanted to add drive one more thing home a little bit. And that is, on these projects that the state has basically dictated on these laws that you have to do these things. And when we brought up the fee schedules on the solar farms was one of the examples.
Yeah.
I think in every single area, the county should maximize the fees on those that the state is dictating, where we get sued because we don't follow that, then we should make them follow the maximum amount for those fees. So whatever our maximum by law that we can charge, meaning road access, permits, stormwater, we should maximize that on all these projects. If the state's gonna shove it down our throats and take away our jurisdiction, basically, we should maximize the revenue from that. Because we're going to pay a lot of legal fees if we turn something down or we make a mistake. We pay a lot of legal fees. And so that we should maximize all that. And when the state does this, we should maximize everything we got. Okay. So if it's $20,000 for a road to access a solar farm from a road, if it's $20,000, we should put that in our structure. It's gonna cost you $20,000 to use that road.
I agree.
If it's a county road, I don't care. The difference between township and county are no difference to me.
All right.
Okay, yeah, I don't disagree with you. Another thing that we'd have to run past the state's attorney's office, I guess.
Yeah, we've got it in the building permits, we've got it in the zoning petitions at that cap, at that max. The reasonable fees when it comes to stormwater and what I'm ignorant in terms of what the highway ordinance is gonna say. Yeah, we'll make sure we vet that.
Okay, Carl, did you have something?
Yeah. Going back to your solid and privacy, what's the definition of privacy?
So privacy is less than 50% open. So if you got a 4-inch board, you gotta have at least a 4-inch space between to be a non-privacy.
Because some municipalities, want, a solid fence around. Why are we changing?
That's, as long as I can remember, that's always been our definition. Less than 50% open is a privacy fence, yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
I drove past a solar farm in Kane County that had a privacy fence around it, a solid, the vinyl brown fence around it. Looked a lot better than those woven wire ones they put up.
Yeah, I live in Kane County, just went past one too, so they must have different rules out there.
Do they not have the blandings turtle?
They must, there was no gap at the bottom, so I don't know.
Not today.
Not today, yeah, sorry. Meant to be
Okay, you guys got what you need from us? Or you?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, Kim.
Okay, we're gonna move on then.
All right.
To the tree preservation ordinance. Let me back up on this for a little bit.
Just the one we had last month.
Okay. I have no attachments.
No, they have.
They have it about here.
Single Scott's is my full sheet. Me? Alright. I wouldn't want to take you away.
Go over there. So I'm gonna hold you up for just a second.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, we're gonna do some.
We have someone who would like to speak to this, who's actually Carolyn asked to come and speak to this. Edward, you want to come up and introduce yourself? I think everybody knows you, but introduce yourself, please.
And we're gonna, Alex, we're gonna have him, because he's gonna utilize or he can do the other side, that's perfect.
There you go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
some insight, background information, for us before we get into the ordinance part of it.
Stay here with you, Alex.
So,
And can I start?
Sure, yeah.
Sure. I think part of the reason for this is, I think that the ZBA has been asking for direction. And last week they had, I don't know if it really held or not, but I think it was on Thursday, at the end of their very short meeting, they voted to ask the county board to weigh in on a tree ordinance, a tree protection ordinance. And partly because they're getting all these projects coming in that are more increasingly are impacting a lot of woodlands and also wetlands, but woodlands in particular is becoming an issue. And so, and I know people have been asking for, in the environmental community, to kind of have some kind of discussion on it. And Ed's our expert and has been with the district for a very long time. He's now retired, but he's going to come in and talk about our oak resources.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I know a lot of faces here for those of you who I have not met. In another life, for 40 years, I worked with McHenry County Conservation District as the Director of Land Preservation. And part of that was developing the first comprehensive analysis and study of oak loss over time that has been conducted in the Midwest. So today I'm talking to you as a private citizen, but it's with that background. of 40 years of knowledge of oak ecosystems that I hope to bring to the table to help you. Just some thoughts, I put them in paper so that you have a record of them, and if it's okay with everybody, I'll simply read them into the record. And I do have 5 very interesting maps for you, but I have absolutely no idea how to get them up on this computer, so someone with some knowledge of that can do that for me. Developing an effective tree ordinance is a pretty overwhelming task for any unit of government to take on.
And did you want them up while you're talking, or do you care to do it afterwards, the maps? Do you want Dan to?
Oh, they can, they'll be part of the talk, so you can
Can you load?
give me a way to put them up there whenever you'd like.
Okay, thanks, thank you. Just to clarify, I wasn't sure.
Sure. It'd be great if you could just put that one up to start, and I can just hit enter. Whoops. There you go.
If you can use these arrows.
Okay, thank you. So without your objection, I'll just read these and you can put them into the record. Developing an effective tree ordinance is a pretty overwhelming task for any unit of government to take on, especially when you consider that there are 194 tree species that are common to the 6-county region where we live. 112 of these are considered indigenous, they've always been here, and the remaining 82 come from places in other parts of North America or from other continents. So when you try to assign relative tree replacement values to each of these species, it gets very complex, as does the process of selecting how you're going to mitigate for tree loss, where you're going to put reforestation sites and many other components of such an ordinance. So it's a tough nut to crack, and I understand that. The county already recognizes the importance of regulating a number of natural resources and has developed very effective methods for doing so. These include water resources, they include gravel mining, floodplain development, and even fuel tax, which if you take it back to its origin is really part of the natural resource. The protection of trees and the mitigating the loss of tree cover, especially oak ecosystems, simply recognizes the ecosystem services that those resources provide for the larger citizenry of McHenry County. And it expands on an already existing and accepted nationwide tenet of establishing regulations and permitting processes that are related to important natural resources. So I will deal primarily with oaks, and why are oaks different than other tree species, and why should they be treated differently in terms of the tree ordinance? So oaks are what ecologists refer to as a keystone species. A keystone species is an organism, and in this case a tree, that is essentially the glue that holds an entire ecosystem together. And it plays a vital role in the structure and the function of that ecosystem relative to the actual population size within that ecosystem. And if you remove it, the rest of the ecosystem either experiences drastic changes or it collapses entirely. There are a lot of reasons why oaks are especially important in McHenry County and in general, and I'll just give you a few to consider. Oaks sequester an enormous amount of carbon. A mature oak can sequester roughly 40 to 50 pounds of carbon annually. That's each year. Over their lifetime, oaks can act as significant carbon sinks, with larger trees, like we have in this county, capable of storing over 5 tons of carbon in their central trunk and roots over 20 years. So the next time you have to deal with an argument that is put forth at a solar farm hearing regarding the loss of solar carbon, or the value of solar carbon reduction, also bear in mind that you have to balance the gain from non-carbon solar with the loss of 180-year-old mature carbon sink oaks that are being removed from that project. So you may gain on one end, but you're certainly going to lose carbon on the other end as those trees are cut down and burned or chipped or used for something else. Oaks also support a high diversity of insects, including many pollinator species. As an example, just to give you one example of insects, there are over 900 species of butterflies and moths that require oaks to complete their life cycle. And there's no other tree genus in all of North America that even comes close to that. The caterpillars that these insects produce are a critical high-protein energy source for 96% of the migratory bird species that pass through our region, and they're essential for feeding nestlings during the breeding season. Just to give you an idea of how complex and intense that is, a single chickadee brood, and you've all seen chickadees at your bird feeders, may have 5 to 6 young, and it requires between 6,000 and 9,000 caterpillars to bring that brood off. And the primary source of that food are mature oaks. Oaks are also superb at managing watersheds, and that's due in part because they have very broad canopies and large root systems. So they diffuse rain, and they soak up precipitation events, and they reduce flooding, and they recharge aquifers. No other tree cover does that as well in our county. The oak leaf litter that falls is a blanket that protects the soil, and that's due in large part because it lasts for up to 3 years after it falls. Maples and ashes and the other typical landscape trees that you see around disintegrate very quickly after they fall, usually within 1 winter. So that oak litter prevents erosion. It provides cover for the creatures that live in the soil to eventually recycle that back into nutrients for enriching the soil. They take a long time to recover to the size of the trees that we're currently losing. So typically to replant an oak and to get it to the point where it provides that same level of ecosystem services that mature oaks do today will take anywhere between 100 and 150 years. So practically speaking, every oak loss affects 4 to 6 future generations of McHenry County residents in terms of that oak loss. So what is the past and the present status of the oaks in McHenry County, which is kind of critical to understand when you have to make decisions about whether trees should be removed for a project or not, whether that project is a solar farm, a development, or a gravel pit. So take yourself back to McHenry County in August of 1837. And this was a wilderness that was on the eve of settlement. Its soil, its water, its land cover had been formed by continental ice sheets and sculpted by fires that burned across the entire face of the county for 15,000 years. And there were 3 very broad natural community types that you would have seen if you had been standing here on that August day in 1837. This included prairie grasslands, riparian and groundwater-based wetlands, and oak ecosystems, and they were divided roughly equally in thirds, covering about 1/3 of the county. So this is where I'll use these maps because they really tell the story pretty well. These maps come from a study that the Conservation District completed in 2005, updated in 2012, and then updated again in 2022. It's the first study of its type ever conducted in the Midwest, and it eventually was replicated to cover 18 different counties in northern Illinois because of the value of the information. And basically it tracked through different resources the distribution of oaks in 1837, which you use as our baseline, all the way to 2022. So in 1837, prior to settlement, McHenry County had about 143,000 acres of oaks. And if you're ever interested in how those figures came to, please feel free to give me a call. I'm retired. I have nothing more to do than talk about oaks all day long, and I'll be happy to do that for you. By 1872, roughly 30-some years after settlement, that amount of coverage had already been reduced by roughly half to 72,000 acres. And as you look at these 2 maps, this follows very closely the moraine systems that the glaciers left in the county. The high ground supported the woods. As you move into settlement, what you see happening is the squaring off of those oak resources, and that's the result of the creation of farms and villages and roads and all the human infrastructure that we depend on today. We moved to 1939, which is the first era we have actual air photos for, and that loss had been reduced to 26,350 acres. So you see a steady increasing downward trend in terms of how much acreage is covered with mature oaks as time goes on. By 2005, which was the conclusion of the study, there were only 18,000 acres of oaks remaining in the county. And that was divided into 3,000 different oak blocks. So literally every block of oaks larger than 1 acre in size has been mapped for McHenry County. Of those 3,000 blocks of oaks, only 157 were larger than 25 acres. The rest of them were very small remaining blocks of oaks scattered here and there on the landscape. In 2012 and in 2022, there were 2 updates to this, taking the old maps, overlaying them with geographic information system, and seeing where the oaks were gone. And oak loss has continued unabated since 2005. That last oak update, which ended in 2022, showed that we had continued to lose oaks. We lost an additional 300 acres of mature oaks in that period of time between 2005 and 2022. To visualize this, I want you to imagine 227 football fields, and they're laid end to end, and they were once covered solid in trees. And if you would look at them today, they would have no trees in them whatsoever. So I give you a visual idea of what 300 acres of oak loss actually means. The loss has been staggering from a township perspective. Every township in McHenry County has lost a significant number of its original mature trees. Chemung Township has fared the worst. It's lost over 92% of that cover. Riley has fared best with about 73.5% cover lost, but most townships average between 85 and 90% of the original trees gone. So having seen these maps, let me finish up by telling you what the major drivers for that oak loss is today, and it's coming from 3 sources. One is a source that the county has dealt with since the turn of the century, and that's an increasing development of open land for residential and commercial. The second is clearing for agriculture, and what you see today is clean farming with the removal of fence lines in order to accommodate larger machinery, and the removal of small oak groves that once stood in fields that provided shade for cattle or provided a place for a farm worker to take a lunch in the shade. We are losing those rapidly. And so a lot of the oak loss comes from that clean farming. Some of it comes from increasing development. Some of it comes from solar farms. So those are the 3 main drivers for how we're losing mature oaks today. That's likely to remain the major impacts in the foreseeable future. So what are some components of oak ecosystem preservation that we could implement now without finishing a complete tree ordinance? And I offer these simply as suggestions. I imagine some of them are things that are already being done when you have to review proposed permits that come through, but I'll mention them nonetheless. And there are 3. These are voluntary. So this is not the county saying you have to provide this. It's saying in a good faith partnership where you want us to approve your permit, we can really use the following information to help us make a better decision. When applicants come in for development or for gravel mining or for solar farms, ask them to utilize the existing oak study maps and note if any of the groves on those maps are going to be impacted as part of the proposed work. The county GIS system has those maps in hand, and they can be provided to whoever is coming in for a permit. That way, when you get the permit in, you know, are oaks going to be part of the impacts or aren't they? This provides you some real-time data to be able to consider when you go through the review process. Prioritize with the permittee voluntary avoidance of cutting down mature oaks as your preferred choice. It's voluntary. I know we don't have teeth right now to say you can't do that. But if you make it known that those are an important resource and in a permit coming in, you'd like to see avoidance, then a lot of times you may see changes to that overall development plan. I tell you that from experience. During my tenure at the district, on several occasions I talked with solar farm folks who were bringing in permits, made them aware of the importance of oaks, and they actually changed some of their design features to keep those oaks in place. Knowledge of what is an important resource is really critical to coming up with a plan. And you can't come up with a plan to avoid those kinds of important resources if you don't know they're out there. So getting that information into the hands of potential permit applicants, I think, is really important and could result in some good cooperation to keep further loss from happening. If an applicant says, you know, there's just no way we can do this project without cutting them down, then ask them why it's not feasible and see what the actual reason is. And finally, ask those same applicants if there are oaks that are already mapped on this study, if they would provide a tree inventory of the site that lists the diameters of all trees over 6 inches in size. This isn't unreasonable, and many developers and other folks doing these kind of permitting options are very familiar with that kind of study, and a number of them are already doing that. So those are suggestions that could be done right now without a tree ordinance. And the longer term solution, of course, is to try to develop a well-researched and a comprehensive tree ordinance that covers both oaks and non-oak species. And I have some suggestions that you might keep in mind if such a process goes forward that could help to stem the loss of oak resources in the future. If the tree ordinance planning approach from the very beginning identifies the remaining stands of oaks as a unique McHenry County natural resource worthy of the highest level of protection possible, that will help drive forward an ordinance that calls those out as the special type of community they are. There are partners that can be worked with to extend the existing oak coverage mapping to include what has been lost up to 2026. And you will see if you can work with the Conservation District, or you can work with another partner who has the GIS resources, or the county itself in its GIS capacity, you will find that we have continued to lose trees from 2022 to 2026. But knowing the scorecard is really important to preventing further large-scale loss. Regional arboretums have already developed some very complex, very well-tested, and very scientifically based formulas for tree replacement. So if you move to a tree ordinance that has mitigation as part of it, my suggestion would be that you split oaks from general tree mitigation, because they are the most important natural community that remains in the county in terms of wooded communities. And both the Morton Arboretum and the Chicago Botanic Gardens have already worked extensively with designing how you come up with a replacement value for trees based on the size of the tree that is being taken down, and that includes oaks. You could consider the creation of a 3-tiered process that regarding impacts specifically for oaks, with the first being avoidance as the preferred choice, second being minimizing the loss, and third, mitigation as the last and least preferred choice. That's already the process we use when we look at wetland impacts: avoidance, minimization, and mitigation. And it can be just as easily applied to existing oak stands. Remember, of all those tree species I talked about, 194, the only one that has every occurrence of that tree, of that particular tree species mapped, are oaks. So you're starting with a very solid foundation on where these resources actually are. And the final thing on that is, I would say, set higher tree mitigation rate for oak stands that reflect the importance of avoiding them and captures the real-time cost of attempting to replicate a natural community that's over 200 years old. So there are genuine real costs that come from trying to replicate that community. It's not as simple as sticking a tree in the ground and saying, we put 5 trees in the ground for the one that we took down. There are a lot of complexities to oak ecosystems, and they deserve the best approach that we can give them. So I would close by saying, and I say this having worked in government for myself for a long time, no one in government enjoys walking that very narrow tightrope between responding to the concerns of current residents and permittees and making difficult decisions for the well-being of the future generations of county residents that have to live with the choices we make today. For the ancient oak groves that have survived centuries of time, they have survived landscape scale fires, and they have been witness to every single moment of our county's history since the ice retreated 18,000 years ago. They are the oldest storytellers, living storytellers we have within the county boundaries. And for these oak groves, time has run out. What we do as professional staff, as concerned citizens and elected leaders today, will be an irreversible decision for the remaining stands of trees that are a hallmark of what it means to live and work and travel in McHenry County. If oak loss continues at the rate that it is currently happening, most unprotected oak stands will be gone within the next 2 decades. It's as simple a choice as that. So I'll leave you with 2 thoughts for consideration as you decide whether you're going to go forward with an ordinance. And again, I will say it's a complicated process, and boy, I can appreciate that. These 2 thoughts are separated by 250 years, but I hope they both carry some relevance for the future work that might lie ahead. The first is from Edmund Burke. He was a member of the British Parliament, and it speaks to what it means to be in public service, which all of you are. In 1774, during a speech to the Parliament, he reminded the fellow members of the Parliament that a politician, that a representative, owes his constituents his industry, but also his judgment. And when he sacrifices that judgment to the popular opinion of the times, he breaks the most sacred trust, the most sacred oath that he has taken. And he's, in saying that, he spoke to the difficulty of what it means to be a public servant and have to make hard decisions. The second is from John Sawhill, the former CEO of the Nature Conservancy. And in a 2014 speech, he reminded his listeners that a society is defined not only by what it creates, but by what it refuses to destroy. And truer words were never spoken of oak groves. So we stand as the inheritors of that 18,000-year-old story. We also stand as the group of decision makers that will decide whether this is the next chapter in oak history for McHenry County or the last chapter for oak history in McHenry County. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to have talked to you. Comments are here. The maps are yours, although there are counties with copies with the county GIS department, and if there are questions and I can answer them, I'll certainly do that.
Any questions? Go ahead, Carl.
You had listed off 3 items that are, detrimental to the oaks. How does a gypsy moth fit in there?
How does what?
The gypsy moth.
There are a lot of naturally occurring things that affect oaks, and there are diseases from oak wilt and bob, which is called bur oak blight, to gypsy moth. And there's also what we call death from 1,000 cuts. Oaks are encroached upon by everything from lawnmowers to roads to running paths to you name it. So the oaks have...
Is that down on the list?
It is actually one of the things that oaks have to deal with. And oaks are very resilient, believe it or not. They can survive an awful lot of stuff. They've been around for 35 million years, and they've sort of figured it out. What they can't survive is being cut down.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's a very good question, though. And that alone takes up a lot of time preserving oaks and trying to deal with the natural components that are part of it. Yes?
What's the oldest known oak tree in McHenry County?
That I know of?
Yeah.
The oldest known oaks, and there's a group of them, of several different species, are actually, there is a divider line in McHenry County as you drive west on 176, for example. You'll go over a ridge and then you'll be in a long flat plain on 176. Okay. Then you come up to another hill where Marengo is. The other side of that hill, which runs from the county boundary in Kane all the way up into Wisconsin, is the furthest west that the ice reached. The land on the other side of that is 100,000 years older than the land on the east side. And on that ridge facing west, just north of the town of Harvard, there is a group of protected oaks now where the trees are between 400 and 500 years old. They're massive. We could probably all join hands around one of them. They're the biggest trees I've ever seen. Some of them were cored to estimate the age. So we have some centurions there in this county. And you'll find those size trees scattered across the county in different places.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in this
You're
morning.
welcome. It was a pleasure to see familiar faces and new ones.
Very enlightening, thank
Thanks for
you.
waiting too.
Okay, so obviously a lot to think about there, and we're gonna get down into some of the more interesting stuff about the tree preservation ordinance.
The end of the township roads, like a Adjournment. Township here.
Okay. Feel free to start anytime you want.
Well, I'll tee it off. We discussed this at the last PED meeting, and we were provided with two different approaches to a tree preservation ordinance from neighboring counties. We had sent those out to you, so you have those specific ordinances. We had asked Alex to do a summary, a side-by-side comparison, so you can see how those different approaches really shake down as far as the nuts and bolts. And really what we are looking for this morning is direction from the committee on where you would like to go with the tree preservation ordinance, how it's to be applied, or if it's to go forward, how it's to be applied, what are some of the key mechanisms. We do appreciate Mr. Collins' comments, and that provides, I think, some insight for you as well. With that, really, we're looking for more discussion and direction from the committee. And Alex or Adam, I don't know if you have anything to add at this point then?
No, nothing to add. I think, be kind of interested to go through, maybe Alex go through the comparisons and maybe draw out some of the finer points or highlights that maybe you'd like to see.
Sure. I mean, if there's anything specific I can go over now, that would be great. But I mean, I would just start with the Kane County ordinance as well. It was touched on before about kind of disseminating between all trees and oaks, for example, and Kane County's, although it was a draft version, it does, distinguish between protected trees and heritage trees, and that again touches on oaks versus all other trees, for example. As noted last month, there are some exemptions that are part of the Kane County ordinance. Means single-family residential lots that are less than 1 acre, orchards, parkway trees, government-owned property, or trees that are on government-owned property, as well as public utilities. As far as the general process for each, it are kind of distinguished between the heritage tree process and protected trees. For heritage trees, those are reviewed by a county forester, which I think was discussed last month. Would that have to be contracted out? Would that be determined by P&D, for example? I think that would be determined later, but that would then go to the ZBA, and then they would fulfill the permit requirements. For protected trees, that's more of an administrative process where either the permit's reviewed or denied, and then either they replace the trees or a fee in lieu is paid. That gets down to the tree removal permit itself. Per permit, that would be $75 per tree for the permit. Application requirements include a tree survey, reason for removal, letter of credit, and a review by a certified arborist as well. For removal and replacement standards, that again is based on the size of the tree. That ranges from anywhere between 10 to greater than 20 inches DBH. And to replace the trees, that ranges from 2 to 5 trees, or like I said, they can pay a fee in lieu, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 or $175 per inch. It's greater than 20 inches. I might just get down to other provisions. County may give verbal authorization if there's any emergency, and if the tree poses a threat to health, safety, or property, for example. Fines range between $100 and $1,000 per offense. Placement costs still apply, and violations include removal without a permit, damaging county-owned trees, or ignoring those plans. And then at the bottom here, I just gave a more concise side-by-side approach between Lake County and Kane counties. Kane counties, their approach is more of a tree-by-tree perspective of it, rather than Lake County's more resource-based approach. Their development impact is less restrictive compared to Lake County's, is more constrained. Removal is more common with a permit, or, like I said, a fee in lieu can be paid. There's no open space requirement for Lake County. I'll just go back up to.
I said, just to be clear, so at this point, the Kane County ordinance is still a draft. It's not been enacted by the county board. We're not sure what its fate will be. I just want you to know this is only proposed, it's not been enacted.
Right, that is their version of it, and that all that can be perhaps modified or changed or discussed further. For Lake County's woodland analysis, theirs relied more heavily on formulas and site calculations to protect trees rather than just a tree-by-tree look at it. For their ordinance, it applies more to large residential, or most residential and large non-residential developments, conservation developments, and intensive land uses. It requires a submission of a natural resource plan, landscape plan, and an open space plan. And development approval depends on avoiding impacts to those trees.
Can we break that down a little bit on the applies to most residential 3+ units, and break that down, what that would mean for us, for our department?
Sure, yeah, I can look into that further. They give a whole list of, what they specifically mean by most residential, but I can follow up with that information as well.
I mean, if I own 10 acres of land, do I have to follow that on the Lake County? I don't have 3 units, 3+ units, right? So I wouldn't, an individual would not have to follow this?
So as I recall, it's a, they look at it as I don't think it's as black and white as you want it to be. That's,
I'm not,
yeah.
I
There's
just want the answers to what.
Yeah, you're pulling up the ordinance.
I would wonder if, if you're like a builder and you're looking at land, right, there's no units on the land. So that would differ than that other component where you have already units on land. So I wonder if there's 2 separate conversations on that. I also wonder about any solar that's prohibited from going on these lands that have oak. Is there anything on that here?
No.
Commercial,
What's that?
accessory, large scale, and accessory
I'll get back to
scale,
you.
solar energy.
Because there's an,
Can you?
Number 2, I.
I. It says,
Yeah, right here. Again, this is for Lake County as well.
And this is passed.
Correct.
They're currently using it.
Correct.
So I think Lake County's model is different anyway, right? Because Lake County, we do everything on the back end, they do everything on the front end. So they are very end heavy in terms of how they deal with everything, and the tree ordinance becomes part of it. So they do a site suitability process up front, right?
Right, I think that's part of the site capacity calculation.
It is,
Okay.
right, and so when they walk away, and it's all of those departments, I can't pull up the ordinance for some reason this time. So it's an early assistance meeting, and everyone goes through it. So when we go through and we cite the solar, and then at the back end, they have to meet our building permit, our stormwater management, and then they meet up with our Department of Transportation for access, and then the fire department, all that comes on the back end. I believe this is all done at the front end, so they have to show that they're going to be able to meet all of these things before they get to the permit process. And so it's not a permit, it's an approval, and then it moves forward, and this can take, time. But then they don't have as much time on the back end because they've already done all the legwork up front. And there's a different model, so you could still do like a tree ordinance on the back end, and it doesn't, and I think some of the things they talked about, you know, you identify which one, I think you might have it in here, the minimum is 70, if it's mature, if we're talking about our oaks, and it has so much, you know,
Protected land, is that what you're?
yeah, with
Minimum.
there's a certain amount of size to it, then you protect 70% of it, but then if you can't, then you have those different layers that you go through.
Or like a tiered system,
yeah.
or structured in that way.
So the way the Lake County ordinance reads, the applicability is site development on any parcel with an area of 200,000 square feet or more, and there's a couple of other applicability, but 200,000 square feet or more, except when the parcel is being developed with no more than 2 single-family residences. So if you have 2 single-family residences on a parcel with an area of 200,000 square feet, you're subject to the ordinance. If you have 3, then you wouldn't be. Imagine that would kick it into a subdivision standard or something along those lines. That would trigger it on our end. And then it gets into what's up here right now, which is the resource protected land, where mature woodlands and young woodlands would have this maximum and minimum percent to be preserved. So that's where you started the discussion, where it's very tree centered as opposed to natural resource centered. That's the difference between Lake and Kane County's ordinances. Lake is going to look at this as a resource on your site, and that percentage can't go less than 70% or 50% once you're regulated.
And solar farms have to abide by this? Because isn't that in litigation right now of trees?
Not for
So
them.
we could deny a solar if they had oaks?
Well, so they don't, so there was a hearing, right, Cover, for the solar farm for us last week.
Yeah, I forget the developer name, but
And
yes.
Cultivates came in, it's on the property on Ridgefield at 14, and they pulled it so that they could, because they were getting a lot of questions about the tree cover on that property. And the question was asked by ZBA, if you were in Lake County, would you have to have a tree study and would you have to mitigate? And they said yes, they absolutely would do that. Because that's part of the process that they have. And they're not doing it to stop solar. I mean, the minute we start looking at this as a way to stop solar, we're dead in the water.
No, I'm just
Right.
curious about what they currently have, and that's been continuous prior to SB.
I think that the property in Ridgefield there, off of 14, they would have mitigated that if it were before Lake County. And they know that ahead of time, and so they went back and they agreed to do, Kimberly Horn, I guess, is a popular company that does these things, because they'd already done the wetland mitigation, wetland review, I believe, but they were gonna go back and do a more extensive tree study.
And how long has Lake County had this ordinance? How long has it been applicable?
But when you say mitigate, they cut down the big old oak trees, they just
They would probably,
plant 4 more trees. Or-
I think that they have to preserve a certain percentage.
Or they found a
upfront.
different location?
Mhm.
Or they find a different location?
I think they try to hold them as much as they can to that first standard, which is not to cut down the trees.
But this is a,
Yeah,
if they couldn't monopolize the space because there's too many trees, then it wouldn't be a good site for them.
To the question,
Yeah.
past 2009, updated 2012.
Okay.
I do have on their website, I do have another update. It looks like they've expanded, so is that October 9th? Yeah, and then it goes all the way, I've got an update as recently as the May of 2023 as well, so whether it's a comprehensive or whether it's there's a few dates too.
Section.
There's wetlands and other items that are incorporated within this ordinance as well.
I ran by
So, I think Carolyn was spot on when you talked about the different approach. This is really, as you said, on the front end, on the site review end, and this really gives you a lot of control for those developments. And if this is an approach that the county wanted to take, my question would be maybe to Adam, is this something that would live within the UDO, or would this be something that would supplement the UDO, would you envision?
I mean, it could go either way. I mean, there's a little bit of a legal analysis that I wouldn't mind having in hand. And that's, not to speculate on that, but in terms of being able to employ it, I think, wherever it lives, the UDO exists because we used to have splintered ordinances. We had 11 ordinances that were all combined into one. And so it would be natural on our end to say, yeah, it would go in and fold in, and we would incorporate it as, as an enforcement, compliance and enforcement type ordinance. But I don't know if there's exterior applications that would then, it would be useful to be outside. That would be something, I don't know what I don't know. So my natural reaction would be it would fold into the UDO. That's why I took this spot.
Well, they do something else. Don't they have a land use, forestry is a land use in all of their zones? Did you find that? Where it becomes, it's a land use category, all zones have that use permitted, so that if somebody, a solar project were to come in and mass, pull out all those trees, they're engaging in forestry. And then that forestry then is subjected to a conditional use permit. To help guide.
Lake County has that.
That's what Lake County has, to kind of prevent somebody coming in and just doing this massive clearing of trees. So they've made it a use across the board, if I'm not mistaken.
I have not seen it, yeah. I do see it, actually, I do see it on here.
And I can't get, where did you?
Under agricultural, yeah.
But if you're in ordinances and codes, which did you hit to get there?
I'm in their American Legal Publishing, so if you go through their website, they'll have a link to their UDO.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, and then it looks like it's a conditional use across the board, for forestry for any.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in this component in Lake County, and we just mentioned legal and this forestry component. So what would be the next steps now?
Well, here's what I would suggest. So we have a framework, and right now, if the committee's interested in pursuing a tree preservation ordinance and with one model or the other, you actually have a framework to go off of as far as standards, as far as things you can almost modify it to meet whatever is going to be the desire of McHenry County. And I would say first off, is there one approach that you like better? If so, let us know. Then the next step would be we can meet with the respective, I would say, our counterparts in whatever county it is, and then just get some more insight on application and how they administer this ordinance, some of the challenges, and then we can come back within an ordinance built off of that framework that you decide, and make sure it meets with what you would like to have in that ordinance. As we would do that, we would also work with the State's Attorney's Office to ensure there are certain components we can regulate and how we can regulate those to ensure that we're not running afoul of maybe state statute or some case law or something that's come in. So you give us a direction here. If you want to move forward, if so, which model, or maybe neither one of these appeal to you. But if you give us a direction, then we can go and do that two-part step. Work with our counterparts in whatever county, work with our state's attorney's office, and come back together with a draft for you.
I think we need to start with one model or the other, or some kind of mixture. To start from scratch would be monumental. I mean, my first thing that comes to my mind is Lake County has this in place. Is it accomplishing what they want it to accomplish? And what is the cost of enforcing it? Or if it's a pre-approval program, what is the cost time frame of that whole process? And that's where I would go with it. I guess you guys can weigh in if you want to, but to, more of a general,
I appreciate Lake County, I appreciate the length of time it's been in place, right? And that it's been revised or whatever. So I'd be interested in not reinventing that wheel, look at all these other factors and then come back with.
see what the history is of it there
Yeah.
a little more.
Well, and I think too, I mean, and I appreciate the fact that you need to look at something and make comparisons and stuff like that, but to me, King County, on some level, is way more comprehensive, gets, in terms of the types of trees that they get involved in, and I think, and it never passed. So I don't want to start with something that was too cumbersome for another county to actually even finalize. I think Lake County is a working model. It may be more restrictive than we want in terms of when we start looking at, you know, property
Well, we can
size,
tweak
and
it,
that we
yeah.
can tweak it to whatever we would like to do. And but I think it sounds like it's a good model. I understand that their system is a little bit different in doing it up front. That doesn't mean it won't work to throw this in at our back end process with our building and our wetlands anyway. It operates very similar to the wetland mitigation that we already do. So, and these companies know to come in, if they're gonna come in, they have to pay for that tree study up front. So, anyway, I think it's worth considering, I really do, but I don't know if I really wanna keep looking at King County. I think it just is a lot, I appreciate it, it's a good comparison to show what they went through, but it's just extra noise at some point. I'd like to focus on what's working.
Anyone else? When I look at King County, do we have a county forester?
Do we?
Yeah,
Negative.
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 Budget restrictions, hire
Maybe they have to hire one.
an arborist or county forester. If we have something where we're looking at the GIS maps and can say, this fits because we can map it, we're not going out there measuring trees, I think it makes more sense to do that. I always have the Farm Bureau in the back of my mind and what they're gonna take a look at this, or if Kane County's Farm Bureau has had any input on theirs and how they are responding to it or not.
Lake.
Okay.
Pardon?
Cocaine.
No,
Okay.
Lake. Did I say lake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can sit here and like wonder, but perhaps kind of coming back.
Oh, I'm so
We're
sorry.
in the forest.
Totally off.
It's like we're in the woods. You know, the timing was really good.
You asked what she thought and she got crickets.
I mean, we can kind of go, what about, but maybe we implement it into our strict, like how it would look in our county, and then we can have takeaways instead of going, what about this, what about that? My 2 cents? Pennies on the penny.
Yeah.
Get that
Are
covered.
Okay.
we just trying to protect the oaks and the hickories?
I don't know that it's just that. I think it has to be a general ordinance.
Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
taking a certain size canopy out, you know, but it's all elm trees or something that may not be that. Where does it start and stop, you know?
Yes, it's
Because I know, I respect the oak. I do have an oak grove on my property. It's awesome. And I plant oak trees and all that stuff, so I can respect that portion of it. But I've also cut down hawthorn and all this other crap that's invasive. And I don't want to be charged to cut down stuff that, you know, or come in front of planning development and say, can I cut these trees? I don't want that overreach. I don't want that another layer of bureaucracy,
I wonder if it's
which
just
is
specific
just
to this.
crazy.
It feels like it's specific to this, oak. But I think we
But it
could
could,
also.
they could go to another thing where it's a
I think-
canopy, right? They're talking about carbon footprints and
Well,
stuff.
that-
King has this tree by tree, where, so I think,
Say to farmers, they do these long hedgerow cuts, so they get more rows in. You know, you're cutting down, there could be all garbage trees, I know, but they're,
Yeah, but I don't think that's covered. I mean, that's not,
I think it should be explained that, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
so the
What are
comeback.
we really looking at, and what are we really trying to protect?
I don't see
Does
it.
it
I mean,
easily
I'm
go
going
to
through here
that?
trying to see if they are naming trees or anything, but they're not, that I can see.
Right, we have to make sure.
I'm really mixed emotions on this of protecting trees. I'm with you.
Protect the right ones.
About the right ones.
Yeah.
The junk trees, especially around the drainage districts, the
Accelerators.
drainage ditches and everything, because you gotta cut those down when you're cleaning them out. They want them out. Conservation district
Cleans them out.
cleans them out
Because
over
they're-
by,
Yeah.
and I don't wanna get to the point where you can't clean those out.
But I think we could put something there exempting the invasive species, and I don't know that it has to be any more.
When you're talking about resource protection, invasive species are actually bad for, like if they're especially in their areas where it's more wet, because they soak up the water rather than letting it recharge into your aquifers. So, I mean, I don't think we're looking at saving those types of things, yeah.
So if we specify to a number of trees and a variety of trees, species, the oaks and whatever, you gotta figure out what those would be.
I agree.
Does Lake County do that at all? Do we know?
You know, in terms of, specifying like what are their individual trees that they protect.
What type of tree,
Not
yeah.
at this time, but I have followed up with the Conservation District here, and they have already given us a list of what would be
That we could
trees applicable
incorporate
to the
into
county.
this?
How many?
I don't, the specific amount, I would have to check back as well, but they do have a specific list, and can try to build that into Lake County's version in some way.
Which, I think maybe that's the direction, if there's a desire to really focus in on, as King County does, specifying what your desire to protect, well, pull that into the Lake County framework.
Yep.
And, that gives you, I think maybe, gives us something to build, right? And I think is what we want to do is we want to build this ordinance for you to meet what your intent is, what your vision is. Once again, we're going to work with our legal counsel, who can also work with our counterparts, get some better understanding. I appreciate the work that Alex has done talking to the Conservation District and getting maybe a list of trees that we could include. Because when you come down to enforceability, you have to be specific, right? Because they need to know what we're going to enforce. So with that direction, if we can maybe take the Lake County framework, specify, maybe look at more specificity on the trees that we want to include, and then we can come back to you after we do some due diligence.
You go ahead, Bob.
So I know the oaks especially, you can only prune them certain times of the year. So say, it's early winter and early spring or something like that. But anyway, say they just got to alter a tree or something, so they're going to keep it. Is there going to be something in the verbiage that they can cut a limb down or stuff like that, right? Maybe you don't have to
We could take a look at how that would be,
Discussion.
how that would be included.
Okay.
I'm not sure, I think we're talking either removal
I'm concerned you're getting
Yeah,
too
that's-
much of bureaucracy in this
It's
when you
not
do
about
something.
trimming.
Yeah, I think you've got to, this is my whole concern about a tree ordinance, is the cost to maintain a program like this, for us to monitor it. I mean, how many employees are you going to have to hire to do this? When we have a tightening budget year after year, if we're going to hire more people, or are we going to just protect jobs? And a tightening budget here, I'm concerned. I'm really concerned of cost, of expenses. And if you're gonna put in a program, you have to be able to monitor it. Or why put a program in?
Let's see what they come back
I
with.
think that, yeah, I agree, because we're not looking to do that, but we also need to make sure that we're not missing something that's important, and then we're getting these, the ZBA is sitting there trying to figure out what to do with these projects that are coming before us, right? And they're trying to monitor, that's all, I mean, we weigh in, if we weigh in and say we're not doing this, then they have direction.
Could we solve this by just putting it into the UDO when you go for a permanent development? And you list the number of trees. Could you, the brands, the varieties of trees, could you solve it just by doing that? And when you're doing a permit review, did you bring your tree study in? same with solar farms, whatever, when or your application for conditional use. Could you do it that way instead of burdening all of the residents who've already lived on a house for the last 100 years, whatever, saying you can't cut your tree down? I just don't understand that. I have a problem with that.
I don't think that's the intent.
I don't think that's.
But that's not the intent. It's unintended consequences that we all run into, especially with the state of Illinois. The unintended consequences that we run into when you create a law, ordinance, or something else. Sometimes just keep it simple, where in the permit structure, it says, you know.
Tree study.
So do you?
Or down the road, future boards may take what we slipped in, build upon it, and go, like you say, unintentional, making it a requirement.
I'm just not comfortable with it yet, but, I mean, when you see it, I understand it on the oaks, I understand it. I really do understand it on the native trees.
Okay.
I mean, I don't cut oaks down, but I have cut an oak down, but only because I had to.
Okay.
But I would do it, and that's whatever you're gonna run into 1,000, 100, every resident who owns property, you're gonna run into a problem with this.
Well,
That's
let's
my
get this
problem.
back from them, Jim. I'm gonna, because we already lost one member, we're gonna lose another member shortly, and that's gonna be me. So
Okay.
if they're gonna bring it back, and we can review it, I think they had some direction, they offered to do that, and then we'll hash it out. I'm sorry to cut you short, but I
Oh, no,
can see we're getting on to 11
absolutely.
o'clock, and I've got a time frame to work with today. If we could do that, that would be great.
I think we have direction to take it to that next step, and that's bring it back before you for endeavor for next meeting. Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
My direction would be keep it simple.
I agree. We'll see what they got, and we can certainly tweak it from there if we need to, or make a decision that we find out that Lake County's not able to enforce it. It costs them a fortune. They're sorry they ever did it, whatever.
Cost of administration is an important consideration. I appreciate that you're thinking about that on the front end.
Okay, special events, animal welfare standards. Who wants to start this conversation? Scott's volunteering.
Actually, I think this can be pretty simple. You know, there's been a lot of discussion regarding animal welfare as it relates to special events. We've heard public comment in that regard. And there's been a lot of, I think, question on whether or not something like that can be legally instituted or not. I know there was some legislation that was pending that didn't really go anywhere, not to my knowledge, at the state level. Really, my suggestion to the committee would be, is this something you would like the state's attorney's office to look into as to what the county can do or not do as it relates to special events, animal welfare standards?
I think we need to know that before we take our time to discuss it. If we can't do it, why do we need to be discussing it if they don't? I mean, I don't know, I'd always lean back to the worst legal advice you got, stuff, or you don't follow. So.
And I did, to be fair, before we went to test the state's attorney's office with this question, I wanted to make sure the committee, it was your desire to ask that question. So that's really the only reason why it's before you.
I'm in favor of asking the question. I think there's some concern. The staff needs a direction, a way to enforce or not enforce. Same for the sheriff's office. Go ahead, Carl.
Adding on to that is if there is, as it's been pointed out in public comment and whatnot, if there is a state statute law that is supposed to be followed, are we following it and enacting on it? Or if not, why? You know, one's right, one's wrong. Somebody, you can't have them both ways.
Well, I think that would be part of the review that the state attorney would do, is kind of look at current state statute. What does it provide for?
Right.
Is it?
Is one blowing smoke up?
Yep.
And are we enforcing it through the planning and development department or something that the sheriff can enforce? We've done this for years on the noise ordinance, and the sheriff says there is a statute, it's a state statute, and we'll enforce that. But not necessarily what you guys bring forward. And I think we might run into the same thing here. But good to ask, that's what we want to do.
If that's a consensus, we'll go forth.
What do you think, Jim?
Move to adjourn.
So yes.
Okay, yes, Scott.
I would second that one.
I think we've discussed that enough at other meetings, that we get something from them so we know what we can or can't do, and then put it on the agenda for next month. ZBA stuff.
ZBA, so while Kim's coming up, invited her to come back and do a little overview of the solar petitions. I'll give the other run-of-the-mill. So we've got 4 other petitions, and we've got 3 solar. 4 others are 2 variations, one for a setback, 50 to 15 feet for a rebuild of an accessory structure. One's for a height variation, 20 to 27 feet, also for an accessory structure. The first one was in McHenry Township, second one's in Richmond Township, so up north. Then we have an A1 to A2, a 5-acre parcel. It's going to be pulled off, leaving 109 acres. That's on Thayer Road in Greenwood Township. And then a conditional use renewal for agricultural engineering. The gentleman has 2 sites. One, this one, where he tests different gizmos and gadgets as they relate to agricultural. Soil testers and pH and all these different, it's kind of a wild business that he's got. And then he manufactures them over on Tech, right? Tech,
Yeah.
over on off of Washington in Woodstock. So I highlight that because it was kind of a cool little business.
Yeah. Which one is, we got an email from,
That's on Guzman, Z260001, from the Township Highway Department.
yeah, okay. You guys read the email, or?
I have not.
Okay, Highway Department was a letter of protest, and I don't think it's an official letter of protest, but he was objecting to it because they were cutting the right-of-way down so much. He felt there was gonna be maintenance issues. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe
he's
that was-
requesting an increase to the setback from what was being
Yeah,
requested.
they're kind of cut it down to like 1 foot or something, and
They were asking for 15 feet, and I think the township wants it at 20 or 25. Do you remember?
It's 20.
but I'll reread it's Guzman, and it's in your email somewhere. I'm sure I sent it to everybody. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then there were 3 solar farms. One of them is in Riley Township that had a vote of 6-1 from the ZBA. There were some flood issues out at that property. Most of the zoning board members felt those were adequately addressed. Marzano Solar in Door Township, that's near 14 and Lucas Road. That got unanimous recommendation for approval, no real issues on that one. And then Marengo Community Solar in Coral Township, that one does include a map amendment. They're currently zoned E1, so that will require, the map amendment to be approved in order for the conditional use to pass on that one as well. So, and that one did get a 5-2 vote in favor of the map amendment and unanimous approval on the conditional use.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Right, thanks.
Feel free to, all the commissioners, feel free to look through those.
I don't see Guzman or whatever, so if it's, is that who it was from?
No, it's from the Richmond Road Commission.
It probably went into.
McHenry Road Commission.
McHenry,
No,
yeah,
it's mine
McHenry,
wrote
it was
Joe
a
all the time.
letter from
I know
Jim
it's
Condon.
Jimmy Condon.
Jim Condon.
Yeah.
Mine wrote Joe.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Well, it comes from
Moved
outside.
by Carl, seconded by
Yeah,
Paul.
no, I
All those in
know.
favor say aye.
Hey.
I.
Thank you.